Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you haven't heard my interview with Mike Michalowicz, check it out. It's episode 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. I'd love to answer your specific questions and share them on the show, so please email me. It's questions@profitanswerman.com. I do read every single email and I will respond to you. Our goal is to learn about money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo jumbo using a simple system. 80% of business owners hate accounting, and I don't blame them. Your accountant is too busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We're not taught money in school. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed material, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit, and that's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, we're going to talk profit first with serial entrepreneur Paul Maskill. He's the founder of the Ultimate Freedom Mastermind. After building his own business up from $0 to $500,000 in 4 years and selling it for a lucrative return, Paul set out on a new mission. He watched his father pour everything he had into his own service business for 40 years until he could no longer physically do the work. With no employees and no systems, Paul's father was not able to capitalize all the work and the risk he put in for 4 decades. The sale of the company was simply selling the truck and the equipment. Today, Paul helps other small business owners automate their business so it can thrive without them, enabling them to leverage their business and to build a life they love. Let's meet Paul and learn from his wisdom. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Paul Maskill. It's great to have you join us today.
Yeah, Rocky, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
And I'm excited for the conversation. So tell everyone a little bit about your business and what you do. And actually, I should say businesses.
Yeah, so we were talking kind of before the show. I guess I would call myself a serial entrepreneur. I love running local small businesses. So I have 3 businesses right now that I run locally. 2 of them are landscaping companies that I'm a partner in. And then one we actually just launched is a camper van rental business. So we take kind of Sprinter vans and Ford Transit vans, turn them into campers, and then rent them out. So along with that, I also am a business coach consultant. I help small business owners build businesses that can thrive without them, so they can make more money, have more time, and really enjoy the freedom and income that we all want when we started our business in the first place.
And that's a big part of it. It's not just about the money. It's about the freedom and the time. That's much more important than just the money. And too often, I think business owners forget about that part of the equation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I was probably, the same way at first. So when I quit my job, I used to work in the finance world, lived in Chicago, was running the rat race and had enough of that, quit my job. And I didn't really have a vision after that. My vision was always to quit my job. So once I started my first business, I didn't really know what I was doing other than I didn't have a boss and I thought that was the end all be all. But to your point, we would always come up with numbers in our head and I was just as guilty. It was like, I want to do this much revenue, but we didn't know why other than, maybe social media told us you should have a 7-figure business or the magical $1 million mark, whatever it is. But I didn't have a vision. I didn't have a reason to do that. So my freedom quickly evaporated because I ended up, basically creating another job for myself and working 60 to 80 hours a week. So long story short, was able to figure that out, and that's really what I help people now is what we really want is the freedom of time. And when we can do what we want, where we want, when we want, with who we want, while having a business that funds that freedom, I think that's really the ultimate goal for most business owners once it's all said and done.
And that it is. And you were on my other podcast, Richer Soul, and we dug deep into that. So for those of you who want to listen to the full backstory, I will put a link in the show notes and you can find that. So we're here today to talk about how we grow not our top line, the vanity number, but our bottom line, which is the sanity number. And so you're a finance guy, but you did decide to implement Profit First. What was your thinking behind implementing Profit First?
Yeah, so I would say I reluctantly implemented Profit First. So I read the book probably 2017, 2018. Whenever it came out, it was fairly shortly after it came out. I love reading. Everyone said, "Oh, Mike Michalowicz." This is my first introduction to Mike Michalowicz. "Oh, you got to read the book Profit First." And I read it, and I was like, I don't get it. Like, why is this such a big deal? I'm a finance person. I always have money in the bank. I know what my profit is. I thought this was for people who didn't have a finance background. So I literally put the book on my shelf and forgot about it. And then actually the mastermind that we were a part of and how we got connected originally, Rocky, everybody was there like, "Oh, you got to implement Profit First. You got to implement Profit First." And I'm a systems and processes person. I love systems and processes. That's what I do every day. That's what I help people do every day. So reluctantly said, okay, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to open my bank accounts. But it wasn't, I didn't read the book. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is my, this is what's going to get me to where I want to go. I thought this is just a book that people who don't know finances should probably implement just so they have some sort of system and knowledge of their numbers. So that was my original introduction to Profit First. Obviously, since implementing it fully at the end of 2019 all the way into 2020, it really has transformed, not only my coaching business that I work with small business owners every day, but the small businesses that I also own and operate here locally in the Raleigh area as well.
So what was the transformation that you were able to benefit from implementing Profit First?
Yeah, so for me, just from a pure numbers standpoint, so like I was telling you before the show, Rocky, year to date, at the time of this recording, my revenue, my top line, as you said, the vanity number has doubled, which is great. Nothing really to do with Profit First, maybe a little bit. But my bottom line, the sanity number has actually tripled. So I've cut my expenses quite a bit without changing anything in my business, and proactively setting aside that money in the profit account for me has been total game changer. Just from hey, there's all this money that is, as he explains it in the book too, kind of Parkinson's law, just like time expands, work expands to the time that we give it. Money always finds a place to go if you don't put it somewhere. And I was just as guilty of it. There's a imaginary cushion in our mind that we look at our bank account without Profit First. And it's like, oh, I can afford this, or hey, I'm going to go out to dinner, or I'm going to buy a year-long subscription to save 10% on X, Y, and Z. And I did that. Like, I still remember it was before I did Profit First, and I brought on a couple clients in the month of October. So my cash, my only bank account with all the cash in it was looking really good. So I went through all of my subscription accounts, whether it was Calendly or, anything that offers, I do podcasting. So any subscription, I opted for hey, buy a year in advance and save 10%. And now every October, it's like, with Profit First, I don't really have to brace for it, but I just have to mentally know that every October now, a lot of these subscriptions are going to hit because I'm still on kind of the annual plan.
And sometimes we forget what subscriptions we have. We stop using it and they auto renew, which is one of the issues that comes up.
Yeah, no, that is totally true. And what I really like now about having monthly subscriptions is every time that charge hits the bank account, it reminds us that, hey, you're still paying for this. Are you actually using it? So I have kind of a set exercise now where I'll go in and always evaluate those. And I never would without Profit First. So I always take a look at, am I actually getting a return on this? Is there a better alternative? A good example is I was using a service called BombBomb, which is a video email service where you can send video emails. It embeds into the email and people can watch your video. I'm a huge fan of video email. And I was just paying BombBomb, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks a month. But then when I went to evaluate that, yes, I was using it all the time, but are there other alternatives? And there's actually plenty of free alternatives. So, without Profit First, I probably would have never went through that exercise. I'd probably still be paying $50 to $60 a month. But now, that's just another byproduct of it. Is it constantly makes you assess, am I getting a return on this investment? And I look at everything we spend in our business should be looked at as an investment. If it's just a cost, why are we actually spending the money on that in the first place?
And that's very true. I use Bonjoro, which gives me 50 videos for free a month. And as much as I want to send videos to everybody, life gets busy and I don't do it. So I've never come close to my 50 videos. I figure that's like 2 a day plus for working days, and it's free at that point. So if I ever get to the point where I'm doing more than that, then I'll spend the money. But as long as I'm below that, I don't. And the second thing I do is I have virtual credit cards that I get from Citibank. And so whenever I pay for an annual subscription, I always use a virtual card, because a virtual card's a one-time use card. And when they go to ping it again, it's expired and used and it won't pay. And so I automatically get an email from everyone that says, hey, your credit card's no longer valid, which forces me to go and pay them again. And because I have to go pay them again, it forces me to automatically think, do I really want to pay them again? And so that conversation happens automatically every year because of that.
I didn't even know you could do that. I am making a note myself that, because I probably have the same Citi credit card that you have. So setting up virtual credit cards, that's a interesting process that I didn't even know existed.
So what Mike does, which is a little bit more difficult, he says, call your credit card company once a year and tell them you lost it and they'll send you a new number, which essentially does the same thing. And I know some of the credit card companies, though, are good about telling you which are your auto pays. Like you can go in there and find it. So you got to find the way that works best for you and what works. So you are a finance guy. And how much do finance guys really look at profit on a day-to-day basis, and how much is that a driver of their decision making?
Yeah, so I would say in small business, we look at it, but we don't really do anything to change it. Usually the mentality is, well, that's just the way it is, right? Because it's always the last thing. It's like, we got to do all these things, and then whatever's left over, that's the profit, and that's just the way it is. Working in the finance world before, when I was working for corporate America, with everybody was finance people. They didn't care about profit at all. Like you and I were talking about before the show, like when I worked in corporate, every employee, if anything, they wanted to spend more of the company's money. Like they didn't really it was such a, I don't know if you want to call it dichotomy, but like nobody really loves the corporation that they're working for, at least when you get to that level. I was working for big banks. So it's like, what can we get out of this company? Can we get them to buy us breakfast? Can we get those lunches? Can we get this? Can we get that? I need a new monitor. But if profit was on my mind, or if I was incentivized by profit, I really wouldn't need a new monitor. So, and that wasn't just like the day-to-day workers, that goes all the way up to the managers, at least in my experience. Profit, we didn't really care about the overall well-being of the company as long as we still had a job. So, it was a very, I would say, selfish culture when you work for big corporations in my experience, just because it's all about us and what can we get, and the company owes us this and we believe that, and then bringing that into the small business world, like we said, even then, unless you have the profit first mentality, we very rarely think about, how can we really change the profit other than go get more top line revenue. We very rarely look at anything in between our income statement other than the top and the bottom.
And it's in between that there is tremendous gold, because that's what I have found for a lot of my clients. As I dig into their reports, I find two things. One, I find them spending money on things that they could get for essentially 10 cents on the dollar. Like they're paying X for a service, and I'm like, well, you can get that same service for maybe 10 or 20 cents of what you're paying. And essentially not lose any quality or be at 98% of the benefit of what you were using or getting from it. And so that's one of the big decisions that I think is helpful. And then the second thing I find is they have some products that they have mispriced or some services that they have mispriced, or there's gems in there that are super profitable and they don't know it, so they don't focus on it. And if you can find where you're losing kind of money or breaking even in your business and not focusing on that anymore and finding where your massive profit customers are and focusing on that, you don't even have to change your top line revenue. I've got customers who lower top line revenue and make more money. And so that is just phenomenal. I don't know if you've seen that yourself.
Yeah, I have. And I would say one of the things that has really hit home just from your messaging and the content you put out is, the quickest way to add six figures to your top line is by just cutting, what was it, $10,000 a year in expenses. Basically, less than $1,000 a month in expenses adds up to $100,000 a year on the top line, because the average small business owner, they basically have a 10%, net profit margin. But yeah, so I'm a partner in a landscaping business. Originally, he was a client of mine, and, looking at all the different services and products that they offer, a lot of times we price things just based on what the competition's pricing. We assume the competition knows what they're doing. So like a specific example is mulch. So everyone puts down mulch in their flower beds, and everybody in the market charges like $50 to $55 a yard. So that was just a number that somebody decided, who knows who, but everyone just follows suit, because you can go buy mulch bulk for like $20 to $25 a yard. So maybe they're just thinking, well, I'll double it and we're going to cover everything. But what we did was we actually analyzed and did a post-job cost analysis of what are the actual inputs into this service, what gross profit do we actually need to hit, and we realized we need to be charging $100 a yard for mulch. And if you tell that to any other landscaper, they're like, you're crazy, you're never going to get that price, like, you don't know your numbers, blah, blah, blah. But we were basically giving away mulch and then some for who knows how many years, because that's just what the market was doing, and that's what the competition decided was a good, fair price. So, when you really know your numbers, and I think one of the biggest, bonuses, biggest things of adding profit first, the best thing that it does, in my opinion, for businesses, along with obviously putting money aside for profit and taxes and controlling your spending, is it really shines big, bright lights, raises big red flags on problem areas of your business. Because if you're going through the process, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, something's not right here. And it could be a myriad of things. It could be you're super profitable, but it takes you 60 days to get paid, so you have a cash flow issue. Or maybe, like you said, you have certain items or products or services that you're selling that aren't profitable that you didn't even know, and then you got these hidden gems that might be super profitable. What you probably run into, and I've run into, is many businesses, they look at their bottom line at the end of the year. It's like, wow, my profit was $200,000. And then you look at their bank account and there's like $10,000 in there. And they say, where did all that money go? And then you go to the balance sheet and it's like, oh, you took out $150,000 in owner's draws this year. Where did that money go? And they're like, I don't know. And then how are you going to pay taxes on that? Because you didn't put money aside for taxes. So profit first, for me, like, other than systematizing everything and letting you sleep at night, it shines so many lights on the problems of your business. And when it comes down to numbers, to me, it's black and white, and it's an easy fix. You just got to change the way you do things and get your mind around a totally different way of operating.
So out of curiosity, were your customers willing to pay the $100 a yard for mulch?
Yeah, they are, because what we realized, and it's kind of funny, I've had this conversation with clients. When you break down the opportunity cost to them and what it would cost them to do it, then it's a really good deal. Because then you're not really competing on price and price per yard, because, we don't say, oh, it's $90 a yard. We just say, this is what it is to mulch your beds. And then we had one guy come back. He's like, that's outrageous. When I drive by the mulch place, it says it's $25 a yard. And you said I only need about 8 yards. And I said, yeah, you do. So it's really up to you. You could also go, and this is kind of getting in the details, but there are 15 bags of mulch in 1 yard. So I told them, or you could go to Home Depot and buy 120 bags of mulch and take like 2 weeks to put it out. Or you could get yourself a Bobcat, and you could get yourself a dump trailer, and you could get yourself all these tools to do it. Or you could pay us to do it, and we'll be done in 4 hours. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. But when it's such a commodity, if you're just purely trying to compete with somebody else on price, one, you're going to lose that race. It's a race to the bottom. So if you do win that race, you've lost, because now you're out of business because you're selling at a loss. But yeah, people are willing to pay, which that's a whole nother conversation of finding your ideal customer and branding and marketing. But I rather make money and have less customers instead of lose money with a lot of customers.
And that's the key. And honestly, if I were in that business, which I'm not, I'd probably find somebody who did mulch only. And if somebody balked that was my customer that I was getting other lawn services and stuff from, and he said, I'm not paying you, I'd go, all right, well, this guy does it, and you'll probably get a price that you're happier with. I can't vouch the quality, but go ahead and go to him and let him take the non-profitable business while you spend your time on the high profit. You have to have the courage to do that. And I think, and you have to understand your numbers to do that. Otherwise, you're wondering, hey, how come I'm doing all this business and there's no money? It's because you didn't run the numbers correctly.
Yeah, no, and that's unfortunately most small businesses, no matter what size you're at. I see way too many business owners. They are busy all day. Like, sun up till sundown, they're busy, no matter what industry they're in, but they really haven't accomplished anything. And then they look at their bank account and they're like, oh, doing all this work, and it's like a grind to make payroll every single week. So, when you can really, if you really, really, really know your numbers to a T, it makes it really easy to then make business decisions too, because the numbers don't lie, and we're not going to compete on price. This really isn't a negotiable price, because as we had talked about before, you get what you pay for, right? So if they're going to pay a premium, they're going to get a premium service as well, because that higher dollar amount allows us to hire the right people, have the right equipment, have the right technology in place to make sure we show up. Because in most industries, whatever you're selling is a commodity, in my opinion, but how you deliver it and the experience you give is what's going to set you apart. So just using the landscaping, for example, most landscapers don't show up on time. If they show up at all, they don't answer their phone. They don't answer their email. When they do talk to you on the phone, they're like driving down the road and there's paper blowing everywhere and it's noisy and, they got a machine running. But when you pay a premium, you don't have to deal with that, because there's going to be somebody in the office. They're going to show up on time. They have the technology to schedule you properly. And they have all these things which allow you to then charge a premium to deliver premium service and give the client exactly what they wanted in the first place.
And that's important. One of the things that I know you're really good at is getting great employees. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. If you look at where we spend our time, most of the time we spend in attracting people. We're always trying to get more customers. We're trying to get more customers, like nonstop. That's just what we want. That's just what we want. But what we really need is really good employees. And the only time we go to look for really good employees is when it's like a 5-alarm fire. So it's like, oh my gosh, Rocky just quit. What are we going to do? Post a job on Indeed, share with your friends on Facebook, go to Craigslist. And we're in like pure firefighter mode. So we're just trying to find the next employee. First person who applies and answers the phone, we say, when can you start? They say Monday. We say, okay, you're hired. And then all of a sudden it's a terrible hire. Then it goes into this vicious cycle. It's terrible hire. We're stuck with them. Can we fire them? And it's just this pure headache. But if we started treating our recruiting like we treat our marketing, and we're constantly recruiting, it's going to make our life a lot easier. So I equate it to fishing. So when we're hungry, we'll eat anything. So we stick our pole in the water, whatever we catch, we're going to eat that thing, no matter what it is. But if we start treating it like this is our pond and we're going to stock this pond with all these really good fish, so when we are hungry, we can just go yank one out with a net because we've got a whole pool of candidates. That's how I recommend everyone really start to treat their recruiting. Always be recruiting. And I kind of learned this from, I would say, my corporate days. Big corporations, they always have job postings out there, even if they're not hiring, because they want to keep their fishing pole in the water just in case somebody really good comes along. And even if they can't hire that person right away, we're going to stay in contact with them. So I use a program, it's called Jazz HR. If anybody listening to this owns a business with employees, use Jazz HR. It basically continuously recruits for you. It's got a lot of automation set up, but you're building a pool of candidates. So then when you do need to hire, you just jump into that pool of candidates and say, hey, we're ready to fill this position. Who's still interested? So that way you're not in desperation mode. And then one other kind of analogy story I'll throw in there just to get people's mindset shifted a little bit is a lot of times people come to us and we say, oh, sorry, we're not hiring. And we just totally ignore that person. They might have been the person we need to get to the next level. And if you think about sports, I'm a huge sports fan. If LeBron James went to any NBA team and he said, hey guys, I'd love to play for you. Do you have any room on your team? Right now and always, every NBA team is fully staffed. They got 15 people on their roster. There is no room. But if LeBron James came to you, you would figure out a way to make it work. You wouldn't say, LeBron, I would love to have you, but we don't really have room in our roster. That guy on the end of the bench, he's really valuable just in case. But come back in 6 months, we might need your service. We would never do that. But in business, we always do that. So if an all-star comes by and you really, really want to bring him on your team, figure out a way to make it happen. Look at it as an investment. Even if you have to get rid of the 15th person on the end of your bench, that's really just taking up space. Because at the end of the day, that's business. And if you look at a big company like Goldman Sachs, that's exactly what they do. They kind of get rid of the bottom 10% every single year so they can continually improve. So those are just a couple, of what I find works really well to build that awesome team is really actually focus on it when most business owners only spend time on it when it's like a 5-alarm fire.
And so what's been your experience of paying people a little bit more and creating that all-star team? How does that kind of change your life and dynamic? And does it actually make you more profitable because you're spending more money?
It does. So yes, you are spending more money short term, but it's saving you so much more money long term because you're able to retain that employee and you're able to attract better employees to begin with. So it's going to lower turnover pretty much right off the bat because it's going to attract the all-star teams or all-star players to build the all-star team. What it's also going to do is allow you to start charging more because you're delivering a superior product. So going back to sports, if you're going to hire everybody on the league minimum, nobody's going to want to buy your product. You're not going to have a really good product, and you're going to have a lot of turnover because those people are going to be looking for the next dollar, more or less. Like, hey, can I make a couple bucks more over there? So one of the questions we ask on all our applications is, no matter what company it is, why do you want to work for us? And if they say, I need to pay the bills, that's not a great fit for us, because if you need to pay the bills, that means you're going to leave us the next time you get an offer to make 50 cents more an hour. That's just the nature of it. So yeah, you are investing more. And what drives me crazy is most business owners, not all, but most, have the mentality that your employees are a cost. And they say, that's going to cost me too much. But you get what you pay for. If you invest more in people, you're going to get a better return. They're going to stick around longer. It's going to save you money long term. And the best thing that it's going to save you that you can't measure with a dollar is the peace of mind and being able to sleep at night, knowing you have an all-star team that's going to show up every day, ready to rock.
It's funny because one of my friends he's in the landscaping business. He does commercial and stuff. And I was over there one day and he was just hemming and hawing because one of his guys just didn't have enough brains that when like one of the hoses went on the truck to just pull over and stop. He drove the truck back to the yard, which essentially blew the engine. And it's like, pay people a little bit more that know enough to not blow up the truck today.
Yeah, and there's so many other things like that. Just how do they speak to customers? The more you're paying somebody, you're probably going to get a little bit more professional person. Not always. There's always the diamond in the rough, the young and up and coming guy that's, ready to do it all. But in general, it's all facets of that business, how they drive the truck, how do they interact with customers, how do they interact with their teammates. All those things save you so much long-term money, time, headache, and everything.
And that's what this all comes down to. Short-term, long-term, building a solid financial base, building a solid company on a strong foundation, and you will survive storms. And we're always going to have storms. You know, we're in one now. There's going to be something else tomorrow, and they constantly come and go. And so you need to build yourself up on strong foundations so that you can weather all of these things that are going to happen. Anything else that you think would be valuable for our audience today?
I mean, since it is all about profit first, if you are skeptical of it, do yourself a favor and just implement it and just get started. So I know I talk to a lot of business owners who say, I can't put that much away for profit. I can't put 10%. I can't put this amount of money away for it. Just start super small. I had a call with a client today. They read Profit First. They thought about implementing it, and then COVID hit, and they kind of took a break. And he said, we're just having a really tough time. There's two partners in the business. They said, we always pay ourselves last from a, just owner's pay, not even profit standpoint, from just owner's pay. And I just said, implement Profit First and start out super small, because something is better than nothing. And you're building the habit, building the muscle, building the routine. And I said, literally just pay yourself $100 a week just to get started. So that's $200 a week. So maybe it's $400 the 10th and $400 on the 25th that you transfer to owner's pay. And whatever percentage that is, that's your starting point, just to start to build the muscle. And like I said, I was a total skeptic, but for anybody out there that is skeptical, not 100% bought in, just get started. Because me being a finance person, that is the lifeblood of your company. The finances are what's going to dictate everything. Even if you hate numbers, you hate finances, you hate looking at P&Ls and balance sheets and all that stuff. The key, I run into way too many business owners, you probably do too, Rocky, is I'm really good at landscaping or whatever. And my bookkeeper, they handle they handle finances because I hate numbers. But you still own the business. The bookkeeper doesn't own the business. The CPA doesn't own the business. So you need to own what those numbers mean. And bookkeepers and CPAs are great, but they're only telling you what happened in the past. They're really not helping you make a decision going forward. So, if you don't love numbers, find somebody that does, that can work together with you, whether it's like a virtual CFO or somebody that can help you with these numbers to start taking action, start getting your books cleaned up, and, really start using your numbers to your advantage to make educated business decisions. So you can take the emotion out of making decisions, because we as business owners, it's our baby. We're emotionally tied to it. And we make way too many decisions based on emotions and saying, I think this is what we should do, instead of letting the numbers dictate that. So that would be my kind of last, parting piece of advice for anybody out there. Get started, find a professional that can help you with these things, because most people aren't like you and I, Rocky, and they don't love numbers as much as we do.
Well, that's why they hire me, because I love numbers. And I look at them and I take the emotion out of it, and I give them the logical math and say, you can do that, but you're going to lose money. So if you'd like to lose money, go ahead and do it. And then it's your choice. But yeah, and not everyone who's a CPA or a bookkeeper is a numbers person. That's kind of one of the big ahas that I've gotten. Some people took that job because they were told that it was a good, steady way to make money, but they still don't understand all the concepts. And if you've listened to a couple of episodes, you've heard that from some of the other people in the past. Their bookkeepers and accountants don't serve them as well as they should, unfortunately. If people would like to learn more about you, find you, and connect, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, Rocky, thanks so much again for having me on. So the best way would just check out my podcast. Since y'all are listening to this, you like podcasts. I actually had Rocky on as a guest previously. So that podcast is called Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, and we interview experts every week, leveraging our business to build a life that we love. So my mantra, my mentality is build an awesome business and an even better life. So that's what we talk about. How do we achieve our ultimate freedom? So Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, check it out. We've got 400 and something episodes by now. And if you want to learn more about, how I help business owners, just go to paulmaskill.com. If you go there, there's all sorts of free resources. You can book a call. We can chat, trainings and everything on there as well. So the podcast or paulmaskill.com would be the best two ways.
And I'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Rocky. Really enjoyed it.
I always enjoy chatting with Paul, and you can check out his other episode on the Richer Soul podcast. It's episode 141. I'll put a link in the notes for you. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Remember to focus on the bottom line. We're going to think our way to a solution versus spending our way to a solution. Here's the bottom line. If you don't want to deal with these things, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer because you have your zone of genius and that's what you want to focus on. I only work with a handful of clients so they get my full attention. Don't wait or I may not have an opening for you. I usually work with business owners who are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. Use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar to see if I can help you. If you want to learn more about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. Let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Let's thrive and grow and have a profitable week.